Hello, folks. It is Sunday, September 10th. It's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast of the United States. In this video, I'm going to talk about the BRICS organization and what I see as the path forward. I've broken my thoughts up into four categories, four segments. Basically, we've got the summit that just occurred, the summit that will occur in October of 2024, and then I'm going to talk about gold and how I see it relating to currency and money, and then I'll finish with just some miscellaneous thoughts. Now, it's been a few weeks since I've produced a video, and basically I got burned out. I immersed myself in the news, and there's just so much negativity going on, so many negative events happening right now that I got burned out. I needed to step back. I think when the Chinese came up with the saying, "May you live in interesting times," they were referring to periods like we're currently experiencing. And so anyway, I'm back. And let's jump right in. This is the summit that just occurred. So what happened? My expectations going into the summit were very low, actually too low. Basically, I was expecting to see a road show for South Africa. This was the first summit that was occurring since the lockdowns, the silliness that started in 2019. I was just expecting that it would be a opportunity for the BRICS members to have meetings, shake hands face to face, plan for the future, etc. I really wasn't expecting much out of this summit, but we got a lot more than I was expecting. The BRICS organization added 6 countries, and you can see them listed there. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, that's 2 of the largest oil producers in the world. When these 6 countries become official members of BRICS in January of 2024, the BRICS organization will control 80% of the world's oil production. I mean, that's a significant change in the geopolitics of the world, that we're going to have one organization, BRICS, in control of 80% of the world's oil production. So my understanding is that China wanted to add 10 countries. India only wanted to add 3. They compromised at 6, and those are the 6. Some of the, backroom thinking, if you will, reason that China may want to accelerate or go fast with BRICS, China may be looking at merging SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with BRICS. And there is a fair amount of overlap between the 2 organizations, and so it wouldn't be terribly surprising to see those 2 organizations merge. Let's take a look at where those organizations overlap. In the spreadsheet, I'm showing in blue, the columns in blue, these are 3 levels of SCO membership. We've got a full member, an observer, and then a dialogue partner. And then in BRICS, we've got, 5? So we've got current members, the 6 members that will, in January of 2024, they'll be official BRICS members. And then also in 2024, I expect that Turkey will join BRICS in 2024. And then we've got the countries that have made a formal application to join BRICS, and then the countries that have informally expressed interest in joining BRICS. And so anyway, these are the 2 categories of SCO and BRICS. And then in yellow, these yellow highlights, this is where we have overlap. Countries that have interest or membership at some level in both SCO and BRICS. And so we can see Afghanistan, Belarus, China, Egypt, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates. And so it does make some sense to merge those two organizations. And so let's keep rolling. So continuing with what happened. And so let's focus in particular on a new currency, which, there was a lot of expectation going into this summit that a new currency would be announced. And of course, there was that announcement did not occur. What did come out of the summit is that the countries, the BRICS countries, were directed to emphasize trade in their local currencies. And so there have been several agreements recently to trade in local currencies, oil, Saudi Arabia and India, trading for oil in the rupee, for example. Now, one of the things, just to note in my slides here, what I've put in parentheses, these are kind of tangents to what occurred in the meeting itself. These are tangential outcomes from what occurred in the actual meeting. So because we didn't announce a new BRICS currency, there's nothing for the West to attack. Imagine if they had announced, okay, here's our new BRICS currency. Well, now the West has something tangible to attack and attempt to destroy, discredit, etc. But that didn't occur. We didn't get a new currency, and so there's nothing for the West to attack. Because they are emphasizing trade in local currencies, it will boost demand for the yuan, the ruble, and the other countries' currencies, the rupee, etc. And that was one of the key things. India in particular, they want to increase the international acceptance of the rupee. They're not all that excited about a common BRICS currency. They want to make the rupee an internationally accepted trade currency. And that just makes sense. And, again, we're talking about sovereign nations. And each sovereign nation has its own interests and agenda. And, that just makes sense, to the globalist agenda, to think that planet Earth is eventually going to arrive at we're all one homogenous society. Maybe we will. In my opinion, if that ever occurs, it's a long ways down the road. 50 years, 100 years, several centuries, if ever. I mean, it's not tomorrow, it's not 2030, although that's what they're trying to push is their 2030 reset. The finance ministers at this current, the summit that just occurred, they were tasked with developing a common currency, and they're supposed to come back to the next summit, the October 2024 summit, where the common currency will be discussed. Now, Bob Moriarty, in a recent video, he made an excellent point where he was saying that, the larger BRICS grows, the less likely it is that we will have a common BRICS currency. And the analogy he used was the poker game where you're ordering pizza. And so you got four guys sitting around a poker table and they're going to order pizza. And it's like, okay, it's like I want vegetarian, you want pepperoni, you want the special with all of the meats, sausage, hamburger, pepperoni, etc., which grosses the vegetarian guy out. But anyway, and then you got the fifth poker player that you add into the scenario, and it becomes exponentially harder to arrive at a agreed upon solution for what kind of pizza we're going to order. And so anyway, I agree with Bob that the larger BRICS grows, the less likely it is that we will get a common BRICS currency. There's too many different agendas for the nations within the BRICS organization. And again, we're talking about sovereign countries. And in the current world, what's going on today, in my opinion, sovereign is a key word. it's a very important keyword for us to keep in mind. Individual nations are expressing their sovereign rights, their sovereign interests. We want to be our own country. We don't want to have this international, what is it? The international rules-based order. I mean, that's just BS. India doesn't care about the international rules-based order. They care about India. What's important to us, what strengthens our currency, what helps our trade with the other international countries, all that other stuff, it's just extraneous. It's fluff. The only people that care about the international rules-based order is the West, and the West is fading. Let's continue here. We're continuing with what happened at the current summit or the recent summit, and let's focus now on de-dollarization. How did the recent summit affect or accelerate the trend towards de-dollarization? So Saudi Arabia is one of the new countries that was added to the BRICS organization. So as of January 2024, Saudi Arabia will officially be a BRICS member. And keep in mind that Saudi Arabia is the linchpin to the petrodollar. So if we look at the history of the United States dollar, we can go back to 1944 and the Bretton Woods Agreement. And then in 1971, Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard. And, in 1974, we arrived at, okay, now we've got the petrodollar, where Saudi Arabia agrees to only sell oil in the US dollar. And so from 1974 going forward, basically every barrel of oil that traded on planet Earth traded in the US dollar. And so now with Saudi Arabia joining BRICS, how does that change the petrodollar? Because Saudi Arabia is going to start accepting trade for oil in currencies other than the US dollar. And of course, that's already occurring. We've got India. we're trading oil for Indian rupees, for example. So anyway, this is a significant change in the world order where Saudi Arabia joins BRICS and starts accepting trade for oil in currencies other than the US dollar. Now, another factor to keep in mind, Saudi Arabia sold $3 billion worth of US treasuries in June. Now, do you think that if Saudi Arabia was all, gung-ho, they're waving the U.S. flag, yay, we're all about the United States of America, would they be selling $3 billion worth of U.S. treasuries? My opinion, no. So just another indication that Saudi Arabia is moving away from the U.S. dollar as the central currency, the world's reserve currency, if you will. Another factor to consider is that Saudi Arabia has recently extended the reduction of oil output along with Russia. And so, here we've got in the United States, Joe Biden flew to Saudi Arabia. He could have picked up the phone and done it all by telephone if relationships were that strong, but no, that's not what happened. Joe flew to Saudi Arabia and specifically asked MBS to increase production of Saudi Arabian oil in an attempt to lower the price of oil on a global basis. And that's not what occurred. Saudi Arabia actually reduced oil production. And now in this recent agreement with Russia, they have extended the reduced output of oil, i.e., they are going to support a higher price of oil going forward, not lower. And again, this is just an indication that they're not They're not waving the U.S. flag. And so the UAE, this is interesting. So the U.S. has already started applying pressure on UAE, the United Arab Emirates, to not join the BRICS organization in January of 2024. So, the U.S. is applying pressure where it feels like it can. And obviously the UAE is the current target, or one of the current targets. So now if we consider what do these changes mean, when the countries are trading for oil in their local currency, it means that they aren't trading in US dollars, which means reduced demand for the US dollar. And ultimately, if we continue down that line of thinking, that means that the US has to print US dollars in order to buy US treasuries. In other words, as foreign countries reduce their interest in the US dollar, they are also reducing their interest in buying US treasuries, which means that the US has to step in, the Federal Reserve has to step in as the buyer of last resort for US treasuries. Well, how does the Federal Reserve buy US treasuries? They print the US dollar. And so basically we're reverting, or going forward, we are moving towards banana republic behavior, where a country prints its own fiat currency to buy its own bonds, debt instruments, and basically exhibiting banana republic behavior. And I'm always reminded, this was, if you're as old as I am, I just turned 60, you might remember the robot on Lost in Space. And he'd wave his arms in the air, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson." Well, when a country starts printing its own currency to buy its own debt instruments, that's the danger, Will Robinson moment, in my opinion. So anyway, let's keep rolling. This is just an interesting kind of random chart. Why would countries be interested in moving away from the US-centric, the unipolar world, and moving towards a multipolar world? Well, there it is. Since 1950, so, and this chart is covering the time period from 1950 to 2019, the United States has imposed sanctions 366 times. Now, do you think that the rest of the world is growing tired of that? I mean, seriously. I think right now the U.S. has sanctions against it 30 plus countries. It's a large number of countries that the U.S. currently has sanctions against. And so this chart just emphasizes the idea that the world is growing tired of being sanctioned via the U.S. dollar. And, that's why they are moving. That's why there is a trend away from the U.S. dollar and the financial world that revolves around the U.S. dollar. So now let's move into, this is the upcoming summit. This is the next summit that will occur in 2024, BRICS Summit 16. It will occur in Russia, Kazan, I'm probably mispronouncing that, October of 2024. Putin will be hosting, because obviously it will be held inside Russia. He won't be at risk of this silly ICC arrest warrant. They're trying to arrest Putin as a war criminal, which just silliness. And of course, ICC is another Western-led, Western-dominated organization, and they've convicted Putin in absentia, obviously, of being a war criminal. It's just silliness, and that's why Putin did not attend the recent summit in South Africa, is because of that risk of being arrested for the ICC silliness. But anyway, so expectations of what could occur at this upcoming summit: 10 more nations being added, new nations. So in addition to the 6 nations that already will become part of BRICS in January of 2024, the expectation is that at least 10 more nations will be added. And one of them, and the most significant one, in my opinion, is Turkey. And then I also expect that as the host of this meeting, Putin will give an address talking about the current state of the world order. And that just seems like a natural thing for Putin to do at this BRICS summit. And I think, and again, this is just me stating my opinion, Putin will say that the unipolar world is dead. And of course, he's a statesman. He'll come up with wording that is far more eloquent than this. He's not going to come right out and say that the unipolar world is dead. He'll say it in flowery language, but basically that's what he'll be saying, is that the unipolar world is dead. But again, that's just Brian expressing his opinion. Let's focus now on Turkey. So Turkey is a NATO member. To become a member of BRICS, Turkey will probably have to renounce its NATO membership. Now, BRICS won't care. BRICS would be happy to have Turkey as a member and allow Turkey to continue as a member of NATO. BRICS organization is it's not a bloc. They're not anti-Western. What I expect will occur is that NATO is going to tell Turkey, say, look, you are not going to become a member of BRICS and remain a NATO member. And so Turkey will renounce its NATO membership in order to join BRICS. And so if we look at some supporting supporting evidence that suggests that might occur. So Turkey has been waffling on the fence between Russia, which is a neighbor, geographical neighbor with Turkey, versus membership in NATO and the West, which is, Turkey may see its future as lying with NATO and the West. But the West keeps promising Turkey things that they don't ultimately give to Turkey. For example, 2 examples. So NATO's going to give Turkey F-16s if they stop blocking Sweden's membership into NATO. Okay, so Turkey backed off to that. They allowed, Sweden to join NATO. Turkey's not getting F-16s. So the reality is that Congress, the U.S. Congress, has to allow Turkey to have F-16s. Well, that's never going to, my opinion, that's never going to happen. Congress is not going to allow Turkey to have the F-16s, so Turkey will never get F-16s. Another example, Turkey was supposed to get an IMF loan. And again, this was Turkey going to the West and saying, we'll give you this if you give us that. And that was an IMF loan. Well, the IMF loan has not occurred, no indication that it will occur. And so again, this is Turkey going against its neighbor, Russia, to appease the West, but then the West not performing on what it said it would give Turkey. And so ultimately, I believe that in the 2024 BRICS summit, Turkey will wash its hands of the West and say, okay, we're throwing in with Russia as our geographical neighbor. We recognize that our path going forward lies with Russia and Eurasia and not the West. And so that will mean Turkey exiting NATO, and that will be the first country to exit NATO. And in my opinion, that will accelerate the collapse of the Western organizations. And in my opinion, and again, this is just Brian stating his opinion, one of the big trends, one of the big things that is happening currently is that all of these Western organizations are failing. So we've got the EU, NATO, IMF, BIS, World Economic Forum, etc. All of these Western organizations, which of course are dominated by the US, they're all failing. And that trend is accelerating, and I think that Turkey exiting NATO will be the next accelerator in that trend. If we look at Turkey on the map, we can see how significant they are geographically. So basically, Turkey controls access to the Black Sea. If we zoom in here, there are two straits. It's the Bosphorus, and I forget what the name of the other straits is. But anyway, nobody gets access to the Black Sea without approval from Turkey. And so when Turkey is no longer a NATO member, the Black Sea becomes a Eurasian lake. The West basically no longer has control or access, potentially even access, to the Black Sea. And so that would be a significant change. And then if we look at the Mediterranean, now Turkey doesn't control access to the Mediterranean, but certainly has a significant amount of shoreline along the Med and a significant say in what occurs in the Med. So anyway, Turkey and a pivot from appeasing the West to solidly throwing into the Eurasian camp, along with its geographical neighbor, Russia, would be a significant event. All right, so now let's talk about gold. And I want to talk specifically about gold as a currency versus gold as money. And so as I see it currently, we have two different objectives. The first is to unleash the price of gold, and the second is to return to gold as money. And the BRICS movement and what analysts have been talking about, BRICS releasing a gold-backed currency, basically that would accomplish the first objective. That would unleash the price of gold. It would be an acknowledgement of gold having value in the financial world. And in my opinion, as soon as we get the first gold-backed currency, gold will immediately jump to some significantly higher value. $3,000 an ounce, $5,000 an ounce, whatever it is. In my opinion, it will be significantly higher than the current price of 1920 or whatever it is today. The second objective is a return to gold as money, because gold-backed currency is not honest money. It is still a fiat currency. And that's the real point that I'd like to make here, is that gold-backed money, gold-backed currency, is still fiat currency. It's a fiat currency that will be manipulated by strong players, central bankers, Wall Street hedge funds, large banks like JP Morgan, etc. Any currency, I don't care what the currency is, what it's backed with, it's going to be manipulated. My objective, and what I really want to see, I hope that I see in my lifetime, is number two here. It's the return to gold as money. It's hard to imagine people walking around with gold coins and silver coins in their pocket, but I believe that that's where we have to get in order to have an honest economy honest money and an honest economy. Obviously, we can't have an honest economy if we don't have honest money. So anyway, two separate objectives. I'd like to be very clear in our thinking and our language about the difference between those two. And so when I listen to other analysts talk about gold, and in particular, leading up to this recent BRICS summit, they were talking about, the BRICS organization releasing a gold-backed currency. I think that would accomplish objective number one. Basically, it would unleash the price of gold. It would not be a return to honest money. None of this would be honest money. It would still be currencies which would be manipulated by strong players, central banks, Wall Street hedge funds, etc. And so that would be the gold-backed currency linked to gold, cryptocurrency tethered to gold. All of that is bullshit, in my opinion. Excuse my language. All of this is basically, it's fiat currency with a sales job that somewhere in the background, this fiat currency is linked to gold. And I would point to you as an example, the euro. When the euro was being introduced, and I'm old enough to remember this, I was paying attention to the financial markets when the euro was a new player, actually was just being introduced. And part of the sales pitch was that the euro was going to be backed by 15% backed by gold. That was the sales pitch. New currency backed by gold. Well, that was bullshit. It was just a sales job. As if you go on the internet today and you research the euro, all you're going to find is that it's a fiat currency. It was never backed by gold. That I did the search. I didn't find any references to the euro being backed by gold, but that was in my memory. And so I asked Bob Moriarty, who of course he's 15, actually, he's 15 years older than I am. And so he concurred, agreed with me that, when the euro was being announced, it was going to be backed 15% by gold. That was just a sales job. And so anybody that comes at us today and talks about a gold-backed, a gold-linked, a gold-tethered currency, that's just a sales job. It's bullshit. The only way we get back to honest money, honest currency, an honest economy is gold as money. And the only language that applies to gold as money is exchangeable. It means that I can take whether it's a paper, folding money, digital currency, it can be digital, I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, I have to be able to take that folding money or that digital currency to my local bank and walk away with physical gold or physical silver. It's exchangeable. That's the key. That's the difference. This is an honest monetary system which will allow us to have an honest economy. All of this is bullshit. Backed by, linked by, tethered by. None of that is going to lead to honesty in our economic system, our financial system. And so anyway, I'm rambling, but just wanted to make that point that there's a big distinction between gold as currency, gold-backed currency, and gold as money. And I advocate very strongly for gold as money, exchangeable gold as money. I'll move on. So we've arrived at my final slide. These are just, big picture thoughts. The biggest trend, as I see it, the big picture, is that the world is moving from unipolarity to multipolarity. And we can look at events that are occurring in these two locations as this is the trend exhibiting itself in real time. And, you can dig into those events and see what's going on there. I see the BRICS organization as the tip of the spear. So basically, it's blazing the trail, if you will, from unipolarity into multipolarity. So that's what I see the BRICS movement accomplishing. This is something that I think we all need to keep in mind as part of our thinking, is that when we look at, whether you want to look at it as the West versus whatever, or unipolar versus multipolar, debt-based versus resource-based, however you want to think about the two groups of countries, groups of interests that currently exist in the world, we need to keep this in mind, in my opinion, that any hot conflict, if the world were actually to go into a state of hot conflict at this point today, what we would end up with is the West versus this. Basically Russia, China, Iran, and a coalition of the willing, but it wouldn't be the coalition of the willing that George Bush talked about, It would be a coalition of willing of countries that back BRICS, multipolarity, resource-based, etc. And in my opinion, any hot conflict today, basically it has one of two results, is that we end up in nuclear conflagration and we're all dead, or the multipolar world establishes itself as the path going forward. And so I hate to end on a somber note like that, but that's where I'm going to finish up, and I will talk to you in the next video, folks.